Hello, everyone. We are providing and presenting a workshop today on AI, artificial intelligence. This particular project is being hosted by the Brain Injury Association of Waterloo-Wellington. We are going to be talking about a few different aspects of artificial intelligence to get people ready for what it's all about, what type of applications there are out there. This project is being funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation. It is a grant project that's been awarded. And we will be providing a series of workshops in the next little while. One of the things that has come up, it's a very, very new type of technology, artificial intelligence. And a lot of people don't necessarily know what it is or what it's used for. So we thought it would be a good idea to break it down first in its simplest form by definition. So it is the use of technology or computer systems to stimulate or perform tasks that are typically associated with human intelligence or human learning. So the biggest things that it's used for right now is creating. So it could create, written text. It could create visual text. It could be used for problem solving or decision making. So these are the different types of uses that we're typically seeing. And as time goes on, like all technologies, there's many, many more uses that are coming into play. The purpose of today is to really get a good idea about the types of artificial intelligence, AI. And when you see those two letters together, that's what it's referring to. Okay. So we use that acronym quite frequently in the technology world. We want to learn about how to safely and ethically use artificial intelligence, right, to protect ourselves and others. We want to learn how to prompt. How do we get the application that we're working on to do what we want it to do? Okay, so it's a big learn how to project workshop. Okay, so one of the things that we do is we ask folks to take an inventory of what they think some of the uses of artificial intelligence are, right? And it's quite amazing that folks are actively involved in using AI on a daily basis and may not be aware of it. So we like to point this out. So we have now smartphones. Most people are utilizing smartphones on a daily basis. We've seen a big shift after the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, where a lot of things were moving on to online. And we've seen a big jump and leap in the use of technology for our everyday lives. So one of the things we always see is that we have, an internet site. So a common one for a lot of people to see is Google. So we see the Google bar on our phones, smartphones, on our computer, or any other type of, it could be a different product, but where we have a search engine, right? So we put in an ask and it populates some information. Google Maps is one, or Waze if you're looking at a different company. Some of our online shopping is also using AI, right? Translation apps, the ones that take, English into another language or vice versa, often uses AI. We have smart monitoring systems in our home. So often now you could, if you're replacing systems for heating or cooling in your house, we now have these applications of artificial intelligence that allow us to control the temperature of our home. These are all very practical uses that we see. Okay. Currently, there's a large push to have artificial intelligence utilized in the medical field. So, helping our doctors and technicians, our specialists be able to diagnose and understand different texts that they're reading or different results from, say, x-rays or MRIs or blood work, right? and speed up the process or help to rule out particular conditions or diagnosis. So we know that there's a lot of different applications, and sometimes, knowing that there's a lot of different types out there can become a little daunting and can become a little overwhelming. But what we want to do is create a list of the different types so that folks have something to go back to or reference, and also get a broader understanding of what's available out there. So we talked about some of the examples of use in everyday life, but to go into it in a more concrete, more very specific application process, we've listed some here. So a type of artificial intelligence that uses, say, voice activated, where we speak out loud and it answers us. These are assistants that are used for usually reminders. So a lot of times are smart home control, and ones that people might commonly know are, say, Alexa, right, which is an Amazon Dot product, Siri, which is the Apple system product, and we have Google Assistant, which is usually in the Android system. So whether it's Samsung or Google Home device, right? Other ones that are that can be used from voice activated are writing tools, writing applications called Grammarly. There's also an aspect of a written tool that is used in say something like Canva. Okay. We also have a subset of artificial intelligence that is generative, right? So we have things like chatbots that are used primarily for writing or coming up with text, summarizing. A lot of students these days are using it for homework help, and it is quite useful if they're looking to break down, say, a mathematical problem and to explain a process of how someone got to a solution. It's also used a lot of the times in brainstorming. Sorry, I'm just going to go back a bit. Common ones that we're seeing and ones that have been widely used in the last couple of years are ChatGPT. That's the one that a lot of people are referring to. A lot of students are using it. A lot of workplaces are using it. And then, of course, with each system, Google has its own, Microsoft has its own. These are all those chatbots where you can ask them to help condense or consolidate information or find information online. We also have other subsets of use. And a common one that we're seeing show up in every day, like we mentioned before, is in transportation. Now, we use it for maps instead of having the big road map, the paper map that we take out. We went from paper map to an online mapping tool where you then print out a map. Now we have ones that are in our smartphones that project into our car through Bluetooth or what have you. Okay, we also have newer technology that's coming out for driver assistance. So this is in vehicles to help on the road, whether it's lane changes. And then we have even more advanced driving systems, like folks might have heard of the Tesla Autopilot, right? Or ADAS, which is the Advanced Driver Assistant systems. So this is when your car would be using the emergency braking, which is kind of neat. And sometimes very, very helpful. Of course, with technology, there's pros and cons. But as we advance, folks learn to, say, make apps better and more efficient. But this is kind of the new wave of where things are going. We also have the subset of healthcare. Okay. So often you've heard about people having a Fitbit or an Apple Watch. These are all AI technology. Okay. It gives information or data on our body. So usually heart rate. It can do sleep tracking. Sometimes it can do as the technology gets better. Sometimes it takes a look at fatigue levels, temperature, body temperature, things like that, which are all great tools for diagnosis. And we're seeing that there's more and more advances to be able to collect that data and use it or send it to, say, healthcare workers, specialists, or physicians. But that's also, where we see it on an everyday basis for ourselves, right? Those wearables. With technology, there's always tech that's free to use, and then there's ones that are either upgraded technology applications or ones that you have to purchase. And of course, folks create these applications, and it is a business, so they do want to get paid for the use. Some sell their technology to companies like Microsoft or Google that picks it up and provides it to us free of use. And then there's ones that we can purchase for, say, people sometimes purchase it for work. If they're a graphic artist, they might want to have a particular application that helps them with that. If you're a business and you want to use, Otter AI, something that translates something like a workshop or such into a meeting, a virtual meeting, into meeting minutes, right? All of these things are there. So these are examples of ones that exist. The common ones, Google Assist, Microsoft Copilot, they come with our computer programs, right? ChatGPT, Gemini, OpenAI, Grammarly, even things like Lumen 5. So some of them might be familiar, some of them not, but there's a huge list that keeps on going on and on, depending on what you need it for. Folks are now using songwriting AI applications, right? Where they're able to write out some lyrics, put it into a program, and have someone sing back to them. So that's great if you're a lyricist, someone who writes music but maybe doesn't sing. Now you have an option to put your music to voice, right? These are really cool and neat things with AI. What that brings us to, though, is that when we utilize AI, just like anything else, we also have to be aware of the risks and protect ourselves in the form of, like, how do we remain safe when online using technology, right? So just like our banking, just like our homes that we live in, or our spaces that we live in, we have to think about protection. We have to think about locking systems, so to speak, or passwords. So what we want to teach folks is how to secure devices, right? Making sure that you have that you're on platforms or on applications that you're comfortable with and that are known and verified. We want to make sure that if you're curious, do a quick search and see who owns these applications and what are their privacy policies. Are they going to sell or share your information? Or is this something that once you're using, they have enough measures in place to try to keep you as safe and secure as possible? We want folks to get in the habit of not sharing passwords or identifying information, especially stuff like banking details, right? There's not a lot of reasons why an application would need your banking information. So we want to have folks understand that even if they're using an AI application like, say, ChatGPT, where you're asking it to, say, write a letter, get it to write the letter, but don't put in your address so it doesn't store it. You can add that in afterwards on a Word document that's separate from the system that you're using. Okay. Ethical use. This is a big one. We see this in schools. We see this with students that are writing essays and such. Prior to the use of artificial intelligence for writing papers, and I'm using this as an example, folks would have to either, I started with handwriting, then we went to typing, then we went to computer print offs. And in each stage, there was a component of ethical use. So we see that we still see that in technology. We just have to shift it. So we could ask an application to write a paper for us, pulling from information from different resources and gathering it for us. But we also have to make sure that we're citing the proper use of the information. So if I am pulling information from a research paper or an article, I want to say that this information has come from that, and that I've received or pulled that from that source. Okay, we want to make sure that we're respectful for the use for things that other people have created. And we also want to make sure that the content that we are reviewing and then putting back out in some type of form, whether it's a paper or written text, is also real. So there's a lot of misinformation online, or maybe false statistics or false information. If we are regurgitating that or sending it out, we want to make sure it's real and not hocus, a bogus entry, right? So we will have to keep that in the back of our mind as well. Not everything that the applications generate is true, right? So we have to read it. We have to take the time to verify it, and check and make sure we're giving the proper credit. Okay. And stay informed. So, by watching this or by reviewing this, you are in fact learning about AI, getting to know some of the details of it and some of the applications so that you can stay informed, right? Another part of that is making sure that we are ensuring who, what the privacy policies are, in order to protect ourselves, and also to be aware of what legislation is coming out within our own government systems for the proper use of, right? And as we move through this, just like everything else, we learn from our use or maybe mistakes, and then we look to see how we can correct it. So it's a very good idea to keep this in your mind when you're utilizing any type of technology where information about you is shared. Okay. What we have a video that I'd like to call up, and hopefully it does. Like, I'm going to draw to it now. And I'm just going to ask and see if this can be heard. So if I can have someone indicate whether they can hear the recording.
Nothing yet.
Okay, can you, if I play it, can you? Did you hear that?
I think I did. I think it opened in a new screen or a new tab.
Okay, so
So
I'm going to share that tab with everyone. If you just hold on for 2 seconds, and then I'll share it. This is a neat little video that helps explain in a fun way how we can start to interact with some of the chat options of AI. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and reshare it so that folks can watch the video, and then we'll go back. Okay. So thank you while we while we go to this. All right, if we can just see if folks can see this now.
perfect.
Okay, and we're going to play and hopefully we can hear it. So if we can just get a verbal yes.
No volume.
Okay. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll provide a link with the information for this in a separate section. What I'm going to do is help describe a little bit about the use of AI. And we're going to do it that way. Okay, here we go. Okay, so bear with me one more time and let's see if I can do this.
Good reason why you should say please and thank you to your chatbots. And it's not just so that AI will spare you when the apocalypse comes. Okay, I'm sure you've seen all sorts of posts telling you what prompt to use to get the most out of your language model. I think you can pretty much forget all of that because there's only really one important thing to remember, which is that the AI that we have now is really, really, really good at role playing. So you shouldn't talk to it like it's a Google search or like you're trying to extract information from it as though it's Wikipedia. Instead, you should talk to it as though it's an improvisational actor that can be any character imaginable. And the reason for this is that large language models, they don't store facts like it's a database, right? They generate responses dynamically based on having read everything that humans have ever written and the prompt that you give it. And that means that AI, the stuff we have now, it doesn't have this stable identity, right? It doesn't have a fixed worldview, it doesn't have personal beliefs. And so if you prompt it in a particular way, it will respond in kind. If you try and prompt it as though it's a Shakespearean bard, then it will give you a flowery response. If you try and prompt it as though it is an extremely effective and smart scientist, it will give you the relevant response. But if you prompt it as though it's an encyclopedia, it's going to try and sound like one, but it's still just performing a role, and you've effectively just restricted what it can do. So instead, what you should do is you should imagine that you're a film director, right, and that you have a character in mind, and then you should prompt your AI accordingly. So don't say, give me 3 interesting facts about science. Say, you are a world-renowned scientist with PhDs in biology and chemistry and physics, and your nephew says that science is boring. You only have a few minutes and you've got to give him counterexamples. What extraordinary stories do you use? And here is the big idea, right? If you are working with a character and you want that character to eagerly help you, whoever they are, it's probably better to be polite. There is actually a really good
So that is a little video on the use of AI to kind of introduce folks to how to interact with, say, some of the generative ones like ChatGPT. It's a neat way of saying when you're asking questions or prompting, please find information on brain injury awareness in Ontario, the way we ask or how in depth we structure our questions when we're in a search engine, like a Google search or a ChatGPT search, will then decipher or determine what information we get back. So I thought it was a great little descriptive way to find that out. I'm going to go back to sharing the training. Okay, so that was the slide on a way to interact with AI when we're looking at some of those applications that allow us to type in a response or verbalize voice activated response. Okay, so some of the language while we're using artificial intelligence, right? So if we are talking about an application where we're typing information or something where we're creating a picture or a graphic or a photograph, we tend to use the word prompts. So prompts are like the kind of programming that we use in a way, right? So it's how we interact and how we verbalize what we want it to do. So really, we've kind of laid out some steps that you should think about when you're inquiring about something or working on a task or project, right? So first one what is the task that you would like AI to perform, right? Are you trying to write a letter? Are you trying to create a computer graphic for, talking about a a garage sale that's happening, right? So you're saying like, oh, we're having a garage sale this weekend. I'd like to create a poster or a flyer that we can put up. So pick your task, right? Maybe you're getting ready for a doctor's appointment and you want to create a checklist of things you should remember prior to your doctor's appointment, or remember to ask your physician, right? And based on the type of task, then you have to choose the appropriate application or platform. So just like with the weather outside, if it's raining, it'll be more useful for me to have an umbrella or a raincoat other than going in, with flip-flops where my feet will get wet, or my, no coat or protective gear, and I'm, going to soak my clothing. So just like that, where you have to dress appropriately for the weather, you have to pick the appropriate app or platform to use for the task you'd like to perform, right? Once you've picked or decided what the best application to use is, and an easy way to do that is to ask Google or type in and say, which application is best for this type of task? And it'll tell you a whole bunch of different ones. And you use the one you're familiar with, or two that you think you're going to be most comfortable using. Okay. The next step really is to look into typing out what your ask is, or speak voice activated, speak your command, right? So give it its prompt. Okay. So some of the prompts, like if I wanted to know the current statistics on, hospital wait times in the province of Ontario, I would say, please provide me with the current or the most updated statistics on wait times in a physician office in Ontario. I can also use the voice command for that. And it would give me whatever it can find. Remember, it's like sort of going through a Rolodex of information. It's going through basically a library of information online to pull out the most recent or current or available information, right? We could then receive that, look at it, and determine whether this is the information we actually wanted, right? If it is, we can save our progress or outcome. If there's a link, so we're on our phone, maybe we want to take a screenshot, okay? And keep that or store it. If it's not what we want and we don't really care about saving it, we can just delete it and move on. If we've sort of gotten to what we need, but it's not quite exactly, we can change or modify our prompt or command, okay? These are all things we can do. And we can keep on asking questions until we get to where we need to go, right? So in this case, if it gives me some statistics on the wait times, but I'm like, maybe I want to compare different years. Is this better than the previous year? Is it, by what percentage has it changed? And has it changed for the better or the worse? I can ask those other and additional prompts, right? So we want to keep on doing that. We want to keep on doing it until we get what we need. And of course, we save, okay? Here is an example. And what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through some of the changes and some of the prompts that we could use in artificial intelligence, mainly some of these research generative AI, to show you its capabilities. Okay, so this is the decision for this example was, let's write a letter. So how can we use AI to generate something that might be a little bit time consuming for us, or hard if we have problems with dexterity or such? How can we use it to help us complete a task? So this one is writing a letter about the effects of brain injury. In this particular case, we decided we wanted to write it to say, a government official or member of parliament, okay? So we can start with a basic prompt. Write a letter about the effects of brain injury. It's pretty vague, but it'll generate something, okay? So sometimes people use this, we can use AI to get our brainstorming or what's the phrase, our juices flowing on an idea, right? Maybe we're stuck and we don't know where to start. We can utilize AI to help us with that process. And this is one of them. Help us write a letter, help us get started. It'll help format it for us, for sure. It will start us off with some information that it finds by sifting through all the information that's on the internet. And what we might do is we might read it and go, yeah, that's pretty good, but it's not exactly what I needed. So we have the option of taking that and modifying it. We also have the option of going through it and, crossing out bits of information that's not really necessary or what we intended originally. But other ones we might go, you know what, I like the way that this particular paragraph is structured. I'm going to keep it, but I'm going to start writing something else. So this is how we can use AI. Back to the very beginning of this presentation, AI as a learning tool or as a complement to our, the problem solving, information finding, that kind of those types of learning. Okay. If we wanted to, we could modify our letter if we wanted to add a few more things. So this one said, we took the letter, we asked another prompt. We gave it an advanced prompt, they say. Okay, so write a letter about the effects of brain injury. That was our original prompt. And include 5 examples of the effects on health and social well-being. Okay. And then additionally, 5 ways to support a healthy life after brain injury. Now, this is just an example, and this is what it gave us, okay? So it talked about 5 key areas and 5 ways to combat the effects to promote a healthy life, okay? Now, this might be information we want, but it might not be in a format we want. It lists it for sure and gives us ideas that we can build off of or include, but it might not be how we want it set up. So again, we can look at it, we can cross out pieces we don't like, or we can modify. So again, we can go back to the drawing board and we can give it another prompt, right? So we can include the write a letter, and in this case to Parliament, right? We've decided to send this letter out to an elected official. We wanted to keep the examples, but we're going to ask it to put it in a letter format. And in this particular case, a very specific format, right? And we thought it might be necessary to include a response back. So as you can see, we've gotten 3 different types of letters, 3 different bits of information or way it's structured. And the part that is great about it is that it generates a starting point or information for us to work from, right? The part that we have to do and that we're still in control of is deciding whether that's what we want, deciding what we want to include or what we want to omit, and deciding how we want to change or modify it to bring it to what we, would have sat down at a desk with a pen and paper to write, a couple of years ago, right? This is helping to get it done a little bit faster, maybe to help us problem solve through some blocks, right? Blocks that we might have experienced with trying to think it out ourselves. Okay. But of course, we're still in control. We still get to decide what's included. We still get to decide what we want to keep, what we want to do, and if we want to send it. But this is just an example of how we can use it to complement or enhance our lives. Okay. So this is, we thought it would be a great list to show people how this has been used. So the letter is one type of application. What we're finding is folks are using it to help them with medical So defining medical terms. So if you've ever gone to a specialist appointment and they've indicated, a type of condition or a medication or maybe even blood work, and you're like, I have no idea what that means. You can ask some of these tools, these applications, these AI applications to define medical terms, to draft questions that you might want to ask about, a particular condition, to compare, what one condition is to another or one set of results is to another. You can ask it to look up, a medication that you've been prescribed to see what the contraindications are or what some of the pros and cons of the medication is. A lot of folks are using it to write school papers or to help them enhance a project. So, years ago, we would go to a library and look up different articles, go find them on the shelves or the stacks, and pull them out and then read through them. This is going to help you. What students are doing is, instead of having to go and do the physical search, this does the search for them and pulls up relevant documents. The student still has to look it over and see if it's appropriate to use or what they need, and review it and read it. But this is going to cut down on the time. Okay. We can ask it to check for information or facts or provide resources. So if you're looking for, let's see all the different places that, accessible restaurants in a city, please list the ones that comply with or have accessible bathrooms, right? You can ask it to do these things and see what it comes up with. Folks are using it to create things, right? So creating logos, videos, building websites. This is all great for business or projects or advertising. We can also use it to set reminders or alarms, right? So we can get it to, turn on and off our lights in our home remotely. We can use it to help us with temperature control or locking our doors. So these are all things that folks have seen it useful for. Other things that folks have used it for is when they've wanted to work on design, so help me design my kitchen. I like this aspect. I want one that has lots of storage. I don't particularly like corner cabinets, so provide me with some options. And folks have been able to play around with design. A lot of people have used it for looking at applications or referrals, helping them write them out, or coming up with how to word something for applications, or running an application through so say the one example is disability tax credit, and running it through an AI program to see what the steps are that they should do in order to complete it, right? So these are ways that it can help us. Okay, so one of the things that we always say is test it out, give it a try. Maybe go on your computer and ask what type of apps are useful for writing, or what types of apps are useful for research. Pick the one that you think is interesting and give it a test. Don't include personal information, but do something simple on it, right? Maybe you want to, maybe you want to say something simple like list all the flowers that are good in the sunshine, right? And see what it gives you, just to test out certain apps that are out there. Okay. And then what we want to do is use it for a practical application. So if you have something coming up that you think it would be useful for try it out. Okay, so test it out with something simple and informal, and then give it a go on something that you find would be actually helpful for your daily life. Okay, so one of the things that this is one of the workshops at the very beginning of this new grant that was given by OTF, Ontario Trillium Foundation. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a series of workshops after this that allows us to look at and explore the different AI applications and the prompts and how to use it, right? So what we want to do is put together a list of different applications that you can utilize it for. So whether it's for letter writing, as in the example in this workshop, or whether it's for attending doctor's appointments, what we're going to do is we're going to list the types of prompts or the steps that you would use in the AI application to be able to provide you with a toolkit on different ways to use AI that you can go back to, that you can reference. Okay. So in the next few workshops, what we're going to ask folks to do is come up with and make a list for us of what they think would be useful. Okay, and we can then practice that with staff or with folks in groups or individually, walking through some of the applications and going through the guide. Okay, we can also look at how it would look on a telephone, on a smartphone as opposed to a computer, and whether the app that we use transfers well, right? Is it a little bit different on a computer? Does it show up the same on our phone or handheld device? Okay, so we're going to look at that and some of the differences. But that's going to be the next few steps in the next few workable projects. Okay, and again, if there's any questions, we're happy to help. And we thank you for your time in this first step of learning about AI.
Thanks so much, Laura.
Okay.